Buyer's agents and buyer agent commissions are here to stay. I made a video yesterday where I showed a new MLS listing where the listing agent is offering a 0% buyer's agent commission. Then the listing agent writes in the comments for the buyer's agent to make their offer a little bit higher, then ask the seller to pay the buyer's agent commission. And I made the video to show agents how you'd write that up in an offer and some alternatives to secure the buyer's agent commission. Now I got some comments here, and at least a couple are from sellers or homeowners, and they are not happy. They do not like that, and basically flat out refuse to pay a buyer's agent commission in that scenario. But I want to address their comments. They make some points worth responding to. But first I want to talk about the buyer's agent commission, because this thing has evolved into a monster over the years that's culminated in this Sitzer-Burnett lawsuit, the copycat lawsuits, the NAR settlement, and now all the changes that are going to be implemented by NAR and the MLS that we as agents will have to adapt to. When I first started at a real estate office over 20 years ago, it was the end of the old school era. So the agents in the office I worked with, they were big in the 80s and 90s. The top producers would sit in the office, smoke cigarettes and drink coffee. The young and ambitious would go outside and do door knocking and face-to-face interactions to get new business. And one thing they always told me at the time was, a listing broker charges a seller 10% to sell their land and 6% to sell residential real estate. Now, never mind that 10% and 6% are wishful thinking. Those are just textbook numbers for the sake of an example. The key part in this is that the listing broker or listing agent charges the seller 10% or 6% to broker their real estate. I'm not mentioning a buyer's agent commission. I'm not mentioning a selling agent, which is the same thing as a buyer's agent. Those get confused very often, but a selling agent or buyer's agent commission is an abstract, it's an afterthought of what the listing broker is willing to pay from the listing broker's commission. So let's think about this in a very simplistic way. So imagine an old-fashioned town, a main street, and on each side of Main Street, there's one of each business. There's one barbershop, there's one drugstore, there's one general market, and then you open the first real estate shop. So you have a real estate brokerage, and you go to clients and you tell them, I will broker your real estate for 6%. So now you have all these listings and you post them on a wall in your office of all the homes for sale. And if a buyer's interested in purchasing, they can walk in your office and say, I see you have this home for sale, can I buy it? And you broker the real estate. You charge the seller the 6% that was in the listing agreement, that you put in the listing agreement as the commission fee. Now one day something changes. A new real estate shop opens. It opens across the street from yours. So you're on one side of Main Street with your original real estate shop, and then there's a new one on the other side, and you decide to walk over and introduce yourself to the competition, and you say, hi, I have the existing real estate brokerage. I have the listings up until now that you're in town. But if you have a client that's looking for a property in your office and they don't find something that you have listed that they like, you're welcome to escort them across the street into my office. And if your buyer sees something on my wall that's for sale that they like, go ahead and write the offer, and I'm willing to share half of what I'm charging my client for you to participate in the transaction with your client. And there you have the inception of CoBroker Compensation or Cooperating Broker Compensation. You are now offering to share a portion of that which you're owed through the listing agreement with another agent. Now, what happens if you take a listing, and this applies for even nowadays, you take a listing and there's no buyer's agent. A buyer shows up and you end up just writing the offer for them. You're a dual agent. And what does a dual agent get paid? Whatever's on the listing agreement. You have to modify a listing agreement to lower the commission if you're a dual agent. Because this whole thing has evolved and grown from this small town example I'm giving to a point where it's implied, it's anticipated that you're going to have to share your commission with another outside agent, with a bunch of strangers. There's so much activity swirling in the marketplace that you must anticipate that you're going to share a portion of your listing commission with some random agent you likely have never met before this transaction. And the listing agreement has evolved to show this over time. So a listing agreement, by default, all the commission charge goes to the listing broker. That's it, it's over. The listing broker owns that commission. Now the listing broker, of course, can modify it if they're a dual agent. They can also pledge a portion of it. And just to prove this, the listing agent has so much control over it, they can determine what portion they want to share with the buyer's broker, with an outside cooperating broker. They can charge 6% but only offer 2% to the buyer's broker. And they can do that. It's their prerogative. The listing agent is charging the seller the entire amount. The entire amount goes to the listing agent. The listing agent pays the buyer's broker through escrow, not the seller. But because people know that the seller's paying the listing agent, and the listing agent is assuming they're going to have to cooperate with another stranger or outside agent, this whole concept has just been distilled down to selling agent commission or buyer's agent commission. It's the same thing, selling agent, buyer's agent commission. And then there's Redfin and there's these companies that just anticipate that there's going to be this commission allocated to the buyer's agent. And now in the listing agreement there is. I mean, in the bottom of the listing agreement, in paragraph 3 of the California listing agreement, you are disclosing to the seller how much you anticipate to offer a cooperating broker. Of course, if there's no buyer's agent, there's no cooperating broker compensation. The listing broker does not have to part with a portion of their commission to an outside broker, a stranger, simply for bringing a buyer and engaging as a cooperating broker. The listing agreement pays the entire amount to the listing broker. No buyer's agent, one less expense incurred by a listing broker. All this commission chaos that we're having to adapt to completely disregards the historical context of a listing broker simply charging a seller to dispose their asset. The listing broker charging 6% to a seller to broker their real estate, and it's understood that certain expenses would be incurred. It might be photography, it might be marketing it in a magazine or newspaper, or it might even be paying a portion, maybe even half of your commission to another agent to act as a cooperating broker and deliver a buyer with an offer that's acceptable to your seller. Somehow the fact that this is the listing broker's commission to spend it how they deem necessary in order to broker real estate has been disregarded. It's totally absurd, but this is the world that we're gonna face in the real estate industry, and we need to adapt. And that's why I made that video yesterday, because as we see the 0% commission experimented with, now this could be the new standard or it could go away, but there's going to be a period of trial and error where real estate agents have to figure out what the landscape's going to look like in the future when you can have 0% listings and buyer's agents either charge their buyer directly or their buyer is expected to be recouped for the commission from the seller because they can't afford to come out of pocket to pay their representative. So I made that video. Now, a couple comments here from sellers or homeowners that are worth addressing, because this one person watches a video where I show multiple methods on how a buyer's agent can be compensated. And then this person writes, it's not the responsibility of the seller to pay a buyer's agent fee when the person isn't representing the seller, which is kind of funny because the outcome of this lawsuit has actually created that exact scenario. Because no, it's not the seller's responsibility. In the past, the seller hired a listing broker and said, you figure it out. And if a listing broker said, well, there's another agent in town that has a buyer that is going to make an offer, but this agent wants me to pay them some of my commission, the seller would say, that's your problem. I'm paying you 6% to broker my real estate. You figure it out. Your problem, not mine. But now that piece of logic, that it's the listing broker's commission, has been completely disregarded, now it's actually going to be incumbent upon the seller. So all those sellers that are unhappy are now going to see that they're going to get an offer that they like, but that offer is going to have a provision in it, and that provision is going to say the seller is going to pay the buyer's agent commission. So this person's saying that, well, hey, I'm sorry, but you're going to see a lot more of it. And this person goes on to say that AI software will come along and help the buyer do a lot of things that the buyer's agent would do, such as flag real problems with the house, termites, leaking roof, mold. Well, that certainly doesn't exist now. And if you think that AI is so helpful in replacing a buyer's agent, just go to ChatGPT and create a prompt that it's a buyer's agent and have it go to work for you and see how well that works out. This person also goes on to say that lawyers do most of the work, such as deeds, taxes, filings. Not really. Lawyers aren't involved in real estate transactions whatsoever. Deeds, proration of taxes, tax withholdings, filing with the county, that's all title and escrow. And to the people that say that, there was so much negativity I saw after this announcement of the NAR settlement, and people talking about attorneys replacing the role of an agent. That to me is outright absurd. It's one thing if a consumer says that they're going to go for sale by owner or figure out a way to do it for sale by owner, because a sliver can actually pull that off. A small percentage of consumers will be able to pull off a for sale by owner. But the idea of paying an attorney to replace an attorney is going to cost far more than an agent, number one. Number two, attorneys have such a broad base of knowledge. I've seen that when attorneys have gotten involved in escrow or real estate transactions in the past, they have such a broad base of knowledge. They don't know every customary or every standard timeline involved with a mortgage and inspection contingency and appraisal contingency, and just basically what's customary for a normal transaction in California. And it can be a transaction that doesn't even have agents involved. I'm not saying you must conform to agent standards, but even investors that work out without agents are far more savvy than the average attorney. Now, there might be an attorney that's a broker too. I'm not talking about those. I'm saying if you try to hire an attorney, not only are they going to charge you more, they're likely going to know much less because they have such a broad base of knowledge. Sure, an attorney could write up a real estate contract for you, but it's not going to resemble anything like the car purchase agreement that's the overwhelming standard for real estate transactions in California. The attorney thing is nonsense. If someone says for sale by owner, go for it. That makes sense. But I'm completely dismissive to the idea of hiring an attorney to replace a portion, much less half, of anything that a real estate agent does. This person goes on and on to say that a buyer's agent doesn't warrant 2.5% or 3%. Maybe not. Maybe buyer's agent commissions are going to fall. Maybe buyer's agent commissions will be a standard 1%. Who knows? We have a whole trial and error period. 2024 is going to be very indicative of what the future is going to look like, because there's going to be so much experimentation and trial and error with the industry adapting to changes. And this person talks about an hourly. It's funny, people don't realize that if you hired an agent hourly, even if it was minimum wage, you'd probably lose money, because agents spend so much time doing work for their clients relative to what a client thinks that an agent's actually doing. Now, there's another homeowner or seller that comments on here after seeing my video on instructing a buyer's agent to pay or to request that the seller pay the buyer's agent commission. This person writes, "You can pressure all you want. The San Diego seller isn't going to pay a buyer's agent commission. I beg to differ. If you want to add it to the sales price, fine, but I'm not going to eat $50K. The buyer should be paying their own agent." Maybe the buyer should be paying their own agent. I don't disagree with that. There's always another buyer. Not necessarily. Here's the thing. This person can talk tough. Sellers can talk tough all the time about not wanting to pay the buyer's agent commission. Sellers are really ultimately the real victim in the outcome of these changes, because it went from the seller paying a listing broker to figure it out on their own. And the seller simply could have said, I'm only paying you X amount. I don't care if you have to pay a buyer's agent with a portion of your commission. I'm only paying you, listing broker, a certain amount. You figure it out. That's gone now. And now the seller will have to pay a buyer's agent directly. So this whole thing has backfired in my experience. And these sellers that are talking tough, they're going to have to reconcile with the fact that they're going to get an offer that they can't refuse. And that offer is also going to have a provision that a portion of that is going to go to a buyer's agent. And they're going to just grit their teeth and accept the offer, because the offer is going to be so good, they don't want to say no, or they may not, and there may not be another buyer, but they're going to have to take into consideration that they're going to have to pay that buyer's agent along with it. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching.